Welcome to Hearts and Stripes, your one-stop shop for all things military marriage. I hope our discussions and interviews equip you with the tools to start or grow a beautiful marriage as we address the benefits and challenges of marriage. I believe life's most precious moments are worth celebrating, so I'll help you design your marriage blueprint in alignment with your core values. Thank you for joining us, and remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes. It is your girl, Bree, and I am here with another heart-to-heart. For those who have been keeping up with this series, September is all about suicide prevention, and this episode is a continuance of that series. So if you didn't catch the last two episodes, go ahead, head back, listen to those two. You'll hear some fantastic interviews from our 2020-2021 Armed Forces Insurance Air Force Spouse of the Year. Myself, from the branch winners, of course, from Army, Navy, Marines, and our Guard Spouse of the Years, and the overall Military Spouse of the Year, Paulette Fryer, as we talked about the Million Mile Project. If you go back one episode, you'll hear about the power of relationships and some of the things that you can do to help make the difference in people's lives as it relates to your interactions, to just be more intentional about people and how they may be, the state that they are in, and how you engage with them. Another way that you can help and be a bridge during this time is also by utilizing those resources. I'll make sure to put them in this episode again so that you have all the resources to help our active duty members, our veteran members. If you're a spouse, if you're a family member, you are welcome here. Those resources can also help you and equip you so that you can help yourself or a loved one. So let's kick this thing off. I am actually taking the opportunity during this series, if you will, to introduce a new segment. So for those who follow the podcast, usually we open up this segment and we have conversations all about strengthening military marriages, whether that just be me sharing some tips and some insight or interviewing one of our amazing guests. And then also another segment that we normally have is EYS, Earn Your Stripes, which is at the end of the episode. That is your call to action, a takeaway, something that you can go out and do after listening to this podcast. And the reason why we have an EYS at the end is because I don't want you to just listen to my lovely voice. No, I want you to get out there and I want you to be intentional about making your life better, to finding fulfillment, to live a purposeful life, and to strengthen your military marriage. So this new segment that I'm considering adding is all about something that I love, which is music. For those who don't know me, I actually have a little bit of a background in dance. I love music. All of my family and friends end up being musicians, and very creative group. And music is really a way that I get through things. If you think back through your life, even your marriage story, you may have songs that remind you of different things, different times just in your life, right? I feel like if each of us took some time, we could probably create a soundtrack of our life, and it would break down everything from our adolescence up until our adult life, and even tell our love stories with some really unique music and tracks, and it's a beautiful way of expression. So the new segment that I am talking about doing to integrate this part of my life and kind of what helped me get through, and one of the things really that my husband and I really enjoy together is music, is by adding this new segment. And this segment is called Heart Tracks. So I definitely want to give a shout out to LL. LL is my sister, my soror. She is the host of Blackening Grad School, and she actually does a similar segment called Lessons from the Trap. LL is amazing. If you are a minority in grad school, I highly encourage that you go check out that podcast, Blackening Grad School. But LL is the brainchild behind a segment like this. and she has lessons from the trap. But here we're going to talk about Heart Tracks. So it's Heart Tracks is the new segment. And for this series, talking all about mental health and wellness and suicide prevention in September, the song that we are going to talk about today is from the artist Logic. So Logic did this song, I believe it came out in like 2016, 2017. And the name of the song is 1-800-273-8255. And I'm going to say that again because the name of the song is like super important, because that is the suicide prevention hotline. Actually, that is 1-800-273-8255. This song just really changed the game for a lot of people. He highlighted a topic that people usually avoid. And if you've heard the other two episodes, you kind of know already suicide is a tough topic to talk about. So I huge respect to Logic for one, just for having a title of a song that brings attention to a number that a lot of people need to know. And again, I'm going to say it again for those who may not have caught it, 1-800-273-8255. It just, when you hear the song, it's just amazing. And we'll probably talk about a little bit of the lyrics later, but he really highlights suicide prevention. And I'm also going to link in the show notes, if you have not seen his VMA performance of this song, it was such a powerful performance at the end. You have to watch it to the end, where he really just speaks his heart about this topic of suicide and just caring for people, and how his album really just broke down a lot of barriers and talked about things that people didn't want to talk about. He didn't care if you were straight, gay, homosexual, heterosexual, transgender, black, white, Muslim, Christian. He really just had a strong message of positivity and light and encouraging people to live. And I can really, that message really resonates with me, especially in a time like this. We're going through a pandemic where this disease does not care what your ethnic background is, what your sexual preference is, right? And then also in a time of injustice, right? He was before his time when it came to this song, and I so appreciate him for having that out, because listening to it now, it just has some new meaning, even for me as I listen to it, and how powerful the lyrics are. And because he spells it out in the song, he's saying lyrics that someone would say if they were in a state of being suicidal, like they don't want to live anymore. They just want to die. Like, it is very much so in your face about these lyrics. And I so appreciate that song, 1-800-273-8255, all about suicide prevention. Thank you, Logic, for putting this song out into the world. And that's kind of the long version of what Heart Tracks is. I think the way we will integrate it into the episodes is by simply asking our guests about a heart track, or if we're talking about a topic, I will select the heart track. By all means, listeners out there, if there's a heart track that you would like to recommend, I would love for you to slide into my DMs on Instagram at bcarolevents and recommend a heart track or a topic that you would like discussed here at Hearts and Stripes. So as we continue to talk about suicide prevention, I really wanted to highlight a topic, which is depression versus sadness. And this is actually a concept that I received from when I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts. It is Redefining Wealth with Patrice Washington. And shout out to Redefining Wealth. This is their 3rd anniversary. So if you are a woman or man who is looking to chase purpose and find fulfillment, and not wanting to chase money, you want to seek wealth, that is the podcast where you can definitely tune in and learn so much that the principles to get you to wealthy living is more than just clipping coupons and saving and financial information. It's a whole lifestyle shift that will get you to attain wealth. So shout out to Patrice Washington. Happy 3rd anniversary. And I just, that episode where she talked about suicide prevention was just amazing. And I just had the concept of kind of dispelling the thoughts between depression and sadness. And there's a difference. And oftentimes I think we use the words and the terminologies interchangeably. We are not professionals to where we can like diagnose someone, but there is such thing as clinical depression, and it is characterized, if I could just give you the definition real quick, it is characterized by depressed moods or a loss of interest in activities caused by significant impairments to your daily life. So what that basically is saying is the cause of it is significant, and it almost like paralyzes you. So it's not something that you can help. It's not something that you can just shake off. And for those, y'all know I'm a God girl, it may not be something that you can just pray off. There is something very interesting that I've been learning throughout September in suicide prevention is that there's a layers to this thing of how people can seek treatment and get well. Prayer absolutely is the cornerstone of that for me, as I am a believer. That is something that I've seen work in my life. Prayer absolutely does change things. And there is a element of wisdom in seeking knowledge and understanding and to finding wise counsel that I do not want to overlook. There is a beautiful thing about therapy. There's an amazing avenue of having clinicians who study our mind and the inner workings of it that can help guide us towards healing in this area. And yes, prayer I definitely advocate for, but I think it is coupled with having the know-how or the knowledge to go get professional help as it relates to a matter of your mind. And the other thing that I wanted to point out about depression is that it can be caused by a combination of biological, psychological, and social. So that's 3: biological, psychological, and social sources of distress. So it has a lot of different factors that can play into someone being depressed. And then depression, clinical depression, is actually a change in your brain's function. It is even chemical changes in the brain function. And I think the interesting thing about this is oftentimes we will just say, oh, they're just really sad, like shake it off. And one of the things that as I've been educating myself about depression, that sadness is not the same. It's not the same thing. I think the best way that I've been able to break it down for myself is sadness is circumstantial to some extent. Something bad happens that makes me sad. Something good happens that makes me happy. And I'm no longer in this sad mood, right? Well, for those who may struggle with depression, something bad could happen and they could be depressed. Something great could happen and they will still feel that weight of depression. It's not something that changes via a mood, if you will. A lot of times when people identify signs of someone who is depressed, and everyone is different. I think I learned that a lot this month. And I would encourage you, just like I'm digging in and trying to learn more, I highly encourage you all to do the same. Do your own research. But one of the things that I noticed was when someone is depressed, even things that they enjoy doing, they kind of steer clear of. They're starting to isolate, like they are unable to function. And that's what I kind of mentioned in the definition previously. It impacts their daily life. They don't want to eat sometimes. They sleep a lot. Some don't sleep at all. it just has different impacts, and they become very weak because they are not taking care of themselves anymore. Like not changing their clothes, not showering, not bathing, not feeding themselves, not doing anything because what is going on in their mind is so heavy that it has them paralyzed. And the reason why I'm talking about the difference between just sadness and depression is because on Hearts and Stripes, I'm all about strengthening military marriages. And one of the ways that we do that is we safeguard, and we have to be the eyes and ears for our spouses sometimes, because if you see your spouse going through something that maybe sounds similar, I would urge you to step in and not just shrug it off as they're just sad, they're in a mood, I think, or they're lazy. Let's not use verbiage like that, but maybe you can be the bridge that gets them help. And that's why we're talking about this right now. That's why this topic is so important. We have to tune into our significant others so that we can get them help before it's too late. That Logic song, the name of it, again, 1-800-273-8255. Guys, if you need to call, please call that suicide hotline. There are people who have been trained to communicate or talk people through these things. Just because it is your spouse does not necessarily mean that you have the words to say in that time. Okay? And I don't want you to put those pressures on yourself. That is why Hearts and Stripes even exists. We are a community to empower one another, to encourage each other's marriages, because you don't go through life and you don't go through marriage alone. If you are in a tough situation like this one, where you are recognizing maybe that your spouse may be in a state of depression, get assistance. Reach out. Call the hotlines. As I mentioned before, I will put the link or the message again to different resources so that you can get linked up with them and give your spouse that help that they need. And let me go a step further. If you may be listening to this and you are the one who is in need, I highly encourage you to reach out to your spouse to get support. If you feel like maybe you are unable to get support from your spouse in this area, I would urge you to reach out. 1-800-273-8255. I could say the number a million more times because I need you to understand that we care about you. We love you. We want to see you live. I know that it is a struggle. It is a weight that is upon you, and it is something that you cannot help. It is something that you tried to shake and maybe could not shake. I am encouraging you to take steps towards getting the help that you need. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. Get the help that you need. Today's episode is brought to you by B. Carroll Events. And for suicide prevention, we wanted to share some helpful resources that may help you with suicide prevention and PTSD support. American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, Boot Campaign, Code of Support, Cohen Veterans Network, Compassionate Friends, The Days Ahead, Give an Hour, Gray Team, Headstrong, Inner Resource, JTF 22-0, Life Giver, Military One Source, National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, Natural Veterans Vocational Village, Reboot Recover, Refuge in Grief, Save a Warrior, Stop Soldier Suicide, Suicide Prevention Resource Center, Team Red, White, and Blue. These are just a couple of resources that we share on the Million Mile Project Facebook group. Be sure to head over and check out the full list of resources. So this topic also brings to my remembrance a time in my life where I would say, depressed. And I find it very interesting as I look back. It wasn't a severe depression, but it was something that kind of lingered in the back of my mind. And the way I'll tell the story is, as a child, I grew up in the Baptist church, and oftentimes you would hear songs of I'll Fly Away. It actually was a song that I sang in the church choir, I'll Fly Away. And there's an older version that's like, some glad morning, I'll fly away. And it's basically a song saying like, you can't wait to go to heaven. And I remember as a child just processing that song and like really being like, oh, yes, I cannot wait to go to heaven. But I was in my young mind, as I processed that, I would start going from a I want to go to heaven to a I don't want to live anymore. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, I know heaven is so much better. Why am I here? Like, why do I have to stick around? Why can't I just die? And I know that's a heavy thing to say, but that's really what my young mind was processing at the time. And I can be very transparent and share that those were thoughts that even I was having as a child. And I shared that with my husband, and we talked about it, which was really good to just bring back up into the forefront. And if anyone has had any experiences, any thoughts or anything like that, I think it's really important that you have those conversations with those around you, not necessarily as I still feel this way, but just give them that understanding of kind of where you've been. It's a way of connecting with them in a different way. And I think that's something I would highly encourage to anyone. But it's something that makes me tap into my children, right? For any of those couples out there who may have small children, I'm very interested in seeing how they receive the messages that are out and around them, because that was a message I picked up in church, right? That's supposed to be a very positive place where you get these great interactions and messages of hope and life. And I got a message of, unintentionally, a message about wanting to go on to heaven. And I think that the thing that I thought was so profound was, oftentimes, and this may not be your church, and there's absolutely nothing against the Baptist church. I appreciate the foundation that I received from there. But in my adult mind, I wish that someone could have broken down the balance in that we can't just be hoping and wishing and waiting for heaven. There is such thing as a heaven on earth, that we can live abundantly, that we could have great purpose here, heaven on earth, right here in this time. We can have that. And I didn't understand, because we didn't talk about that part. We just talked about being relieved, and there's no pain and there's no hurt, in heaven. We don't talk about that here. It seemed like living was suffering, and suffering was over in heaven. So I completely get how my young mind started to obsess over that a little bit. So I'm very conscious of, or I try to be, we could always do more as parents, right? But I try to be very aware of the messages that my children are receiving. I know one of my girls is very sensitive, and she cries a lot, and it may be a phase, but maybe not. I try to be a little more sensitive to her at times, just because I don't want to play down her tears or play down her sadness. I remember as a teenager, I would sit in my room, I would just lay on the bed and cry. And my mom came in one time, I remember, and she said, like, what's wrong? And I told her, I remember saying to her, I just haven't cried in a while. I just needed to cry. I just need to lay here and cry. And I did. And I don't remember how long I was in that room, but I just laid there. Like, I just couldn't move. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to lay there and cry. And I'm very aware that could have went down a very dark path. And I did have times in my life, Lord knows, where I did have those depressed episodes come back. That was due to some social things that were going on. Partly my choices that I made when I was not valuing myself, and some relationship trauma, if you will. But I think I'm happy that I went through those things and I got through them so that I could speak to my children about them now and speak with my spouse about them now and be a little more sensitive in those areas. And I just encourage each and every one of you, if you feel like maybe you are depressed, or maybe you think you have a mental health, something different is about you. You know, you don't react or feel like how you feel like you should be receiving information, or your emotions should go. It's just not quite lining up, or you feel that weight. I would just encourage you to let you know that everyone has mental health issues. It's something that we have to be diligent about and check in internally for ourselves all the time. It's not just one group of people that has this. You are not alone. That's my message. You are not alone. And I just wanted to encourage each and every one out there to seek the help that they may need before it is too late. One of the things that I found that was really helpful for me, it's a practice that I continue to do, are words of affirmation. I find that I had a hungering and a craving for self-improvement. And you guys know here at Hearts and Stripes, I feel like you have to be and show up as your best self to have a thriving marriage. Like, you have to be on it. Your spouse has to be on it, so that when you come together, your marriage and your relationship is so much better. And one of the ways that I do that is through affirmations. And for anyone who is interested in affirmations, or checking out the guide that I created for affirmations, I highly encourage you to head to bcarolevents.com/guide. You can get the Mill Marriage Affirmation Guide. It walks you through some affirmations that you can utilize to just speak into your military marriage. I show you and tell you everything that you need to do for the practice. Is very simple, but it's about getting your mindset and your words aligned to speak life. And it's really that simple. It is really that simple. But I hope that guide, the Mill Marriage Affirmation Guide, is a tool that can help you. It is completely free. Just head to bcarolevents.com/guide and you can sign up to get that download. And I hope that it helps you. By all means, if you think affirmations and just aligning your words and your thoughts may be for you, feel free to Google some. That's okay. You don't have to download my guide. I would love for you to, because it's specific to strengthening your military marriage. But if you maybe need some words of affirmation in other areas, maybe it's your job, maybe it's your work, maybe it's feeling self-worth, or whatever the case may be, I highly encourage and support a practice of affirmations, and you do it daily. And I cannot speak more about it. It's really just showed me myself in such an amazing way, that I could think higher of myself than I had been, that I need to continue to think a little higher of myself. And I love the scripture that says that God's thoughts are higher than ours. And I feel like we think so little of ourselves. We think so little of what we can have, the opportunities that we could have, the people that we can meet, the impact that we can make, the influence that we have. We think so less of ourselves, and God sees us in such a different light, so much greater. And I just feel like the practice of affirmations just allows us to speak things as if they are. There are power in words. And I would just encourage anyone who needs that mindset shift to go check it out. So that is all for this episode. I hope that you received something as we had our discussion all about depression versus sadness. And let me know what you thought about heart tracks. If you like the fact that we kind of talk about a song, break down a song, or tie music into the topic of what we are discussing here at Hearts and Stripes. And I would love to get feedback from you. If this is something that you think should stick around, we'll try it for a couple of episodes, see how it goes. And by all means, give me your feedback. You can DM me at bcarolevents on Instagram. You can also message me on Facebook at bcarolevents. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, everyone, you know what time it is. It is time to EYS, earn your stripes. So what I want you to do as we EYS these heart tracks we've been talking about, you can actually follow along with all the heart tracks on Spotify. That's right. Check out Be Carol Events on Spotify and look at our playlist for heart tracks. I've added some already. I'm excited to hear what tracks you think we should add to them. Start listening to these hard tracks and see if you feel a little different about your mill marriage. I can't wait to hear your recommendations to topics for heart tracks. So go ahead, EYS, check out our playlist on Spotify and recommend any heart tracks or topics that you would like to hear here on Hearts and Stripes by DMing me at Be Carol Events. Can't wait to hear. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. This is Hearts and Stripes. We are the few, the proud, that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are Mill Marriage Strong.